All right, in this tutorial video, I will show you how to use the latest version of the ELAN template for annotating non-manuals, which was developed in the context of the ANM project. This is the version from May 2025. So the first step, and I'm not showing you this here, but it's to download the template file, which has the extension .etf from the nonmanuals.net website, along with the controlled vocabulary file. So that's the one with the extension .ecv. And if you'd like, the corresponding PFSX file. This is an auxiliary file that ensures that all the tiers in your tier structure are nicely and hierarchically ordered, also corresponding to the order in which the tiers are presented on the website. So make sure that these three files are in the same folder on your computer, along with the video or videos that you'd like to annotate using the template if you'd like. After completing these steps, we will start with ELAN opened on our computers like this. And then we'll go to File, New, or simply use Control or Command N. And then we're going to select our template, which is this file, right? So we'll move it to the right. And we can also add our media file that we want to annotate. So that's this one here. And this is a random video from a recent experiment, which I'll be using as an example for this tutorial. And now I'll click OK. And here's what we end up with. I'll clean this up a little bit. So we've got our tier structure here. And we've got the video material at the top left. Now, we haven't created any annotations yet, but this is a pretty good moment to already save your file as an EAF. So I'll do that now. And I'll call the file ANM tutorial. So this is where the annotations will be saved. Okay, so as you can see, and I can scroll down a bit, the template really includes dozens of tiers, but it's likely that in most cases you're not going to need all of them, right? In most studies, or in fact, you might only need a few. So let's select only the tiers that we want to use now by going to this tier menu here, right click, and select Show, Hide, More. So for this tutorial, I'm going to make some annotations on the simplex tier S eyebrows and the complex tier C head nodding. So let's click hide all first, and then we'll select the relevant tiers. So that's S eyebrows and its dependent tiers, don't forget. And then I'm going to have to scroll down a bit to find the complex head nodding tier, which is over here, and its dependent tiers below them. And I also want to select my main tier called non-manuals annotation units. Okay. So now I only have this set of tiers left. And I'm ready to start adding annotations. So of course, I did my homework a little bit before recording this tutorial, and so I know that there are some events of interest for these tiers at around the 13-second mark in the video here. So the first annotation that I'll make is on the main tier. And remember that the scope of the annotations on this tier is determined by you. And it may depend on the nature of your study. So if you want to have some concrete examples of what the scope of your annotation units may be, see chapter 5 of the guidelines on the ANM website. So here I'm just going to select this chunk, something like this, and add an annotation, and I'll just call this annotation example. Right. Now let's first focus on the eyebrows. Move this so that the video is a bit bigger. So I'm going to select my annotation here on the main tier to replay this bit of video a number of times. So on a Windows, you can use Shift plus spacebar for this once you've selected file. I see that I want to make my annotation a bit smaller in scope. I think I'll also slow it down a little bit, which you can do under controls. So 50, just for ease of exposition. Yeah, that looks about right to me. So shift spacebar or use this button over here to replay this bit of video. So having looked at this bit of video a few times, I've come to the conclusion that there are two simplex events here involving the eyebrows. So first, I believe that there's a one-sided brow raise and then brow lowering of both the eyebrows. So let's add that first event first. And I do that by clicking on this space here, double clicking. Then this menu pops up and I select the label raised. Now, because this is a simplex tier, the annotation will automatically span the entire width of the annotation on the main tier. So if we want to add another label, and that's the case here, right? Then we can right click and select new annotation after. You can also use Alt Shift plus N for that. And then from the drop-down menu, we're going to select lowered. All right. So we then need to make sure that our annotations are time aligned with the, where the events actually take place in the video. So we can do that by hovering over the boundary of these annotation units here, and then pressing Alt on the Windows, or the Option key on Mac, I believe. And then when we click, we can drag this boundary here. And then I believe in this case, actually, we don't have to drag this boundary too much. So something like this. Okay. So what's next? Well, I said I've determined that the eyebrow raise actually involves one eyebrow here. So to annotate this, I'm going to use the sidedness tier, which is added as a dependent level 3 tier for all paired non-manual articulators, so like eyebrows or shoulders. So having the raised annotation selected here, I'll go to the relevant tier here, sidedness, click. And then I have a choice. So either I can go for the basic label one-sided here, or I can go for a more specific label, which indicates whether it's the left or the right eyebrow that's involved in this event. So I'll go for this latter option now and select the label one-sided right. So that means the signer's right eyebrow, which is raising here. Excellent. Now we're ready to add confidence scores for our two labels. So remember that this is a mandatory step in the annotation procedure. And for the label raised, I'm going to go for the confidence score medium because it does look a bit like the left brow is also raising along with the right eyebrow a bit. So let's have a look. I hope you can see this properly. I think that this is just a side effect of the other eyebrow raising, which, yeah, makes me feel reasonably, albeit not fully, confident in my label selection. So medium it is. Here we go. Then for the label lowered, here, I'm pretty certain. I have high confidence in my label selection, so I'll select high here. Well, I want to keep both annotations in my analysis, so I will not make use of the dependent exclusion tier. But I might want to add a comment about this one-sided eyebrow raise to say that it could also be two-sided. So I'll add that note here. This is just an example of how you can use the comment tier, of course. All right, let's move to the C head nodding tier. So remember that this is a complex tier, which means that annotations that you add on this tier do not automatically span the entire width of the annotation of the main tier. So this means that you only add annotations on this tier when necessary. So in practice, that might mean that for some files, you may not add any annotations on a particular complex tier, simply because there are no events to annotate. And this is very different from simplex tiers, because if you decide for your data set that you want to add annotations to a particular simplex tier, so for instance, the eyebrow, the S eyebrow tier, then you will need to annotate continuously for all main annotation units that you're adding. So if the brows are actually in a neutral position rather than, for instance, being raised or lowered, then you need to select the neutral label such that you end up with continuous annotations. Well, that's not the case here for this complex tier. So let's have a look at this bit of video again. So we're seeing at least two nods here, or exactly two nods. Yeah. And specifically, they take place right after each other. So I'll want to use the label MP nodding for complex event involving multiple head nods, right? So let me figure out first where the event starts. So it might be somewhere around this. And a useful tool or key combination to use here is Control or Command plus the left or right arrow. Because this allows you to go through your video, move through your video frame by frame. And that can be very helpful when deciding where an event starts. I think it's somewhere around here. So I'll take that as the beginning of my annotation. And then let me drop it here for now to add the annotation. MP nodding. Okay, so I'll then check if I'm satisfied with where the final boundary of this annotation is. Oh, and actually, I realize that the nodding continues all the way to the end of the main annotation unit and actually even beyond that. So I can drag my boundary to the end of the annotation. And then we're good. Now I feel pretty confident about this label, so I'll also select the confidence score high, and then I'm done because I don't want to exclude this annotation and I don't really have any comments. So that's a quick hands-on tutorial on how to add annotations following the ANM guidelines, May 2025 version. I hope it has been instructive, and please do get in touch if you have any questions or doubts.